Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Thanks so much for clicking. It means a lot that you guys keep clicking. If you guys keep clicking, I'll keep making. And today we are recapping the previous episode. And with tons of paranoia being very present throughout this episode, I think we need to get into it right away. So the episode actually opens up with Chanel coming back from tribal and realizing how out of touch she is with the game, being very now aware of how bad she has been playing the game. She says that she sees this as a huge wake-up call to get her head back in the game, but then we get a confessional from Mike basically saying that it's way too late for Chanel to become socially connected because she seems to be more of an outcast, and that's really not going to change, especially under Mike's watch, because he really wants Chanel to go after her rogue vote for him in the last vote of the pre-merge. We also get a similar scene with Marianne where she kind of realizes that she's on the bottom of the Tataku tribe after last tribal, where she received votes from people on her own tribe. And I feel like, to me, this is a scene of her obviously flashing back to her childhood, where she basically compares not being accepted into the majority in this game to her childhood, where she wasn't accepted by people, and that people always viewed her as annoying or too much to deal with. The scene really seems to want to paint her as not like some emotional wreck who's overreacting, but someone who is genuinely like having a flashback to her childhood and is having genuine feelings. And to me, I think it's a sign that production wants us to think Marianne is not crazy. They want us to realize why everybody else thinks that she's crazy, but they want us to be like, oh, no, she's fine. Like, Marianne, that's my favorite. And I feel like, to me, this is fueling a possible winner's edit or a fan favorite edit. I think it's one of the two, and we'll just have to see what happens in the future. The next morning, we see Mike telling us about how good his social game is and about how he's having combos with all of these, he calls them kids, but people who are younger than him, about their lives, and is bonding with them over that. We see a clip of him talking to Jonathan and bonding with him more based off of last episode. We also see a clip where he basically talks to Omar and asks him about his religion and him being Muslim, and he basically watches him pray and ask questions and is trying to be as respectful as possible. And it's a really heartwarming scene, and just shows that it's not all about identity politics or you're racist, I'm racist. It's just Mike is a cool dude. He's asking questions, he's curious, but he's not trying to perform for the camera like a Shan is or like a Xander is, saying, you're so eloquent, Deshaun. It's not performative. It's just someone curious and someone who is genuinely trying to just include everyone and treat them equally. We then get a scene with Mike, and just like the previous scene with Marianne, I feel like this also is supposed to make us really like Mike, and honestly, it works this time. I really like this scene with Mike. And I think they're trying to edit him as maybe like a Janet Corbin type of person, where he knows everyone, everybody loves him. He's like the father figure of this season, but eventually they have to vote him out, because even though his game isn't the best, his strategy and blindsiding and advantages, he's just so socially connected and just overall a really good person with a great story that you can't let him get to the end. So at the start of the reward challenge this time, and again, there's 11 people left, we get 5 people split up onto, teams. So it's 5v5, and there's one person who's left out. That person is Marianne, which is ironic considering that she just had her crying scene. And then Drea opts to switch out with Marianne, since the reward, which is PB&J sandwiches, is not Drea's favorite. And we actually hear from Drea that really was her intention there. It wasn't to play the game or to help Marianne out. It was just that she didn't like PB&J. And Drea goes to sit down on her bench, and it turns out that there's an advantage under the bench, and it turns out that Drea finds it. She finds it and puts it in her pants and gets back to camp to read it. And it turns out that this advantage is the exact same advantage as the one that Liana got, the knowledge of power advantage, where if she knows who has an idol or an advantage, she can ask them, and if they have it, they have to give it to her. But if not, if she's wrong and they say no, then she doesn't get anything, and she also gets a giant target on her back. And me personally, I actually really like this advantage. I do think that it could be more balanced if they told all of the players specifically the rules and the fact that it was in the game right now, so that players could be aware and therefore swap advantages, because last season we saw that the way to balance this is to allow players to counter it by kind of swapping their advantages and kind of playing hot potato with their idols and extra votes and such. And so I feel like the best way to do this is definitely to allow the players to counter it by telling them that it's in the game, Somebody has it, and it could be used on you, so prepare. But let me back it up a bit. So the thing that Drea gets from this bench at the challenge is actually a beware advantage, and so therefore you can expect a negative twist to come with it. And that twist was that this isn't the advantage. This is a clue to that advantage. So it tells her where to go. But at that spot, 5 steps away from the water well, there's a huge jug of red paint, and at the bottom of that little tunnel in the ground, it's like a little dug hole full of just thick red paint. Like it looks straight out of Home Depot, and she has to put her arm all the way down in it and grab the advantage. And so obviously when she gets it, she has to go and wash herself off, and she doesn't wash off all of the paint. And so when she goes back to camp, Tori sees that and maybe, kind of investigates. She asks Drea, and Drea says, no, I was painting the tribe flag and I got messy. And then Tori realizes that the paint on her arm is a different color than the paint on the merged tribe flag, meaning that Drea is lying. Now, Tori doesn't immediately suss it out, but she does hypothesize that there's something shady going on there. And she tells Marianne, but really doesn't think much of it. We get a scene also confirming what we learned last episode, because the people who are not in that majority 8, or I guess now 7 alliance in Romeo, Marianne, and Tori are all on the bottom. That's what we hear from the power players in High and Drea and Omar. And we see that Omar actually has personal alliances with all of those people on the bottom to make them feel comfortable and make them feel like he's on their side, so that he can have ears all around the game. It's very, very smart stuff, and it just shows how hard Omar is playing the game right now, while still kind of staying under the radar and not being some gigantic target like a person like Drea is. At the immunity challenge, we see 4 people give up immunity, and in return, Jeff gives them 4 days worth of rice. So that's something. And Tori wins her second individual immunity in a row, deeming her now kind of a physical threat at this point. I mean, I think she's going to have to keep winning now at this point, because if she loses now, they're going to see it as their only opportunity to get her out. But she is safe tonight. We get back to camp, and it really quickly falls onto Chanel. The target is on Chanel because Tori won immunity. And right now it's kind of between Chanel and Romeo, but it's definitely Chanel because Mike wants it to be Chanel, and Omar would also rather it be Chanel. On top of that, High, the other power player, is fine with Chanel going. But Romeo, instead of just chilling out, he decides to become extremely paranoid. He gets about like a 10-minute segment where they just shit on him. I mean, they show him playing the game terribly, and just overall being a very, very paranoid player in the game, before we go to Tribal and see that was all for nothing, and that Chanel goes home. Basically a unanimous vote with, I believe it's 2 votes for I think Romeo, 1 for like Lindsay or like Marianne or something, and then the rest are all for Chanel, making Chanel the first member of our church. But what do you think? Good episode, bad episode? Let me know in the comments. None of this happens without you guys. Without you guys, I'm just a weird guy speaking a weird microphone. So as always, thank you. And if that's what, talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.